Alrighty then. Welcome to the second time me shooting this video. This time with my recorder actually turned on, um, which is kind of annoying because it was very long to go through, and I get to go through it again. But I just love you guys that much that we're going to go through this again, even though I'm slightly tilted that I just wasted like 30 minutes of my life. Either way, hopefully it'll be faster this time. This is what the Simic deck looks like right now. I have other decks in the workings. In fact, I'm just going to completely hide that now. Um, Nah, I don't think it's named anything you'd actually be able to tell since it's down at the bottom anyway. Um, this is what the deck looks like now. I think from the last time I played, I put in Mystic Confluence over Misdirection. I put in Swan Song over Exploration. I put in Edric over the Rhystic Study, which I haven't liked, but I haven't really got a chance to cast the Edric. I've only had this for a couple games. I'm thinking this is probably going to end up as either Treachery or Mana Dork, to be quite honest. Um, so I don't really have a whole lot of faith in this, but we're going to give it a shot first. Either way, I've got some sweet games for you in the making. Look for those to come out maybe sometime after Christmas. I do have some Christmassy stuff to do. Spoiler alert, I do have a budget storm deck I've been working on. I've tried 4 or 5 iterations of different kinds of decks to get it absolutely perfect. I finally decided on the exact kind of version I think it's going to work. It's going to be great for my budget players and my players looking to try their hand at Storm. And so look forward to that. I actually have another deck I'm making as well. So new decks on the horizon. I don't want to release them until I've got them to a point where I feel like people can actually go and play them and they don't need more tweaking. And I'm still working on that. But like I said, I'm fairly busy right now. So until then, I'm going to play one more game of my Simic deck here. And the reason I want to do this is I felt like this game was excellent. It was really fun to play. I've got my boy Nicodemus over here. I'm going to call him my boy because if you've ever read the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, excellent novels, and this is one of the super villains of the series and an excellent character overall. If you're not a Jim Butcher fan, you should be. His books are absolutely excellent, all of them, not just Dresden Files. So I'm going to hop right into this game for the second time. um, the commanders here are new commander Saskia the Unyielding, so everything but blue. Vigilance Haste. As it enters the battlefield, choose a player. Whenever any creature you control deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to the chosen player. So pretty much you can get around blockers from somebody and kill 2 players at once. So not a super good card, but not a super bad card either. It's definitely interesting. Everything but blue. And then we've got come on, headset. Please stop doing that. My headset's been a little finicky lately. I may have to, like, mess with it occasionally. Hopefully not too much. And Rashmi Eternity's Crafter is actually an excellent card. I've played against a couple times. I've even considered testing it in this deck. Excellent commander overall. I think it's a really good blue-green commander. I don't think it's as good as Triton Hero, but it's definitely a very powerful card. Whenever you cast the first spell of each turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a non-land card with converted mana cost less than that spell's, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you don't cast the revealed card, put it in your hand. So at the very worst, it's every single time you cast a spell for the first time on any turn. It kind of reminds me of Jory N, but better. You get to draw a card, and if it's less than the spell you cast, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So if you flip a counter spell, you don't have to. Um, but it's even extra value on top of that. So it's a really excellent card. Um, anyway, we'll hop right into this game. I actually play last. This hand is perfectly keepable. It's not excellent. I don't have quick acceleration, no mana dork, no nature's lore, nothing like that. But I do have Glenalandra Archmage, Forbid, and as well as Merchant Scroll to potentially go get Mana Drain, and we got Time Spiral in the bank to refill and kind of transition to combo once we kind of made it to the mid game. So I feel like this hand is perfectly keepable. It's not super exciting, but it's no Soul Ring, nothing like that. But it's definitely a fine hand. So some slow starts by everybody. Scryland comes into play tapped. City of Brass thing. Don't really like this land so much. Future Sight off the top. This is another card I've considered putting Treachery in for, or maybe even some other kind of draw. Well, top is excellent in this deck. Future Sight, I feel like, is a little bit better in the Storm Shells when you get the black tutors and you can go infinite with it fairly easily. The card is overall excellent. You can play it in any blue deck. I play it in most of my blue decks. So it's never really been bad here, but it hasn't been like excellent here, just because of the nature of how this deck kind of runs. So it's definitely replaceable, but it's not bad. I'm going to go ahead and lead the basic island. No Soul Rings or Mana Crypts from anybody, so we got a kind of fair start to this game, a little bit of slower pace, which makes it quite interesting in my opinion. Guy gets a Secure Tri-Builder, so not a bad start there. Take note that he played Basic Swamp, and this is kind of a budgeted land, so I don't give him credit for having all the bestest cards in these colors. This guy goes Basic Plains behind his Halmir Depths, so same thing. Looks like they have a little bit lower budget than I do, so I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot as far as the fact that their decks probably don't have all the best cards in them, so I'm probably favored even going last in this game. I draw the Mana Drain, which makes my decision of whether or not to go get Mana Drain with Merchant Scroll much easier. I think I was probably going to play Triton Hero anyway, but drawing the Mana Drain is absolutely excellent here. Note that since I'm not playing a deck like Storm, I'm not going to be able to go grab a High Tide, though I have considered testing that here as well, just because I have the Palinchron. Though I don't have quite the island density with the fetches and stuff as far as all my lands are islands, though I probably have just as many islands, if you know what I mean. But it's probably perfectly fine here, but I've decided against it just because of the nature of the deck. I don't feel like, I mean, playing a blue ritual is probably not horrible, but it's probably not amazing either. But since I drew this Mana Drain, this card, its value is a little bit diminished since I would say half the time I cast this card, it's going to get Mana Drain, at least in this deck. So, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and toss out my 2CC Commander, which is why he's so excellent. He's going to go ahead and read the bones. So some good grease on this guy's engines, ramping, refilling back to 7, scrying. So he's doing quite well for himself. Wall of the Denial. Not really a big fan of Wall of Denial. Obviously, when I'm trying to kill people with Aetherflux Reservoir, this card doesn't really scare me all that much. I will say my success with Aetherflux Reservoir and some other decks has me strongly reconsidering playing it as over Grapeshot in my actual Storm deck, just because it's so insane. That and it's kind of the nuts in one-on-one when you just have to get like five cards flipped or something like that, and you can kill the other guy. That shouldn't be a factor to me, but it definitely is. I feel like Grapeshot's probably better if your metagame is playing Hate Bears for sure. But maybe as a general card, I'm seriously considering playing Reservoir over Grapeshot as the third kill condition. The more I play with it in these other decks. But in this turn, I decide I'm just going to pass on the drain. No reason to pop the Merchant Scroll. Really nothing else to be done. So just going to be camped behind Mana Drain for a turn. So not very exciting. He goes and plays a Gristly Salvage. It finds a bunch of lands and nothing all that scary. Plays a Farseek. So yet again, he's just slowly grinding his way up to Value Town. And then instead of playing Rafiq in the mini, he passes. And instead of playing Rashmi, he passes. So what we have here is the blue player Mexican standoff. So you already know exactly where this game is headed. I'm assuming this is counterspell heavy in everyone's hands, or maybe this guy just didn't want to walk into my counterspells. I'm not quite sure. But there's 3 blue over here being represented. Blue is the heaviest color over here represented, and I feel like I would rather keep open Triton Hero's ability just in case they're doing the pass thing again, as opposed to maybe getting Force of Will with a Merchant Scroll or something like that. So we're just going to pass right back. Yay, we found our land drop. It's quite fortuitous. Harmonize, not worth mana draining. We're starting to see a theme here with this guy, just playing a modern power level good greasy cards. So I feel like this guy's on a budget, but he really gets how the game is played. So maybe a little bit more of a casual player. Can't really tell that, but he at least knows how to make his deck keep its wheels churning. This guy continues the theme of play a land pass. Nicodemus continues the theme of play a land pass. And I go ahead and activate Triton Hero, finding Force of Will, and stick it on top. And I'm really wondering if he had the card in his hand that he already did, and he just I'm not going to spoil it yet, but let's just say if he did already, this could have been a way different game if he did something right there, but he didn't. I think because he's also afraid this player's also got counterspell though, so I guess that's something to be said for that. Quite happy to find the land on top. Don't want to miss my land drop. I give some thought to Merchant Scroll. Even though I already have the First of Will, I give some thought to going to get Mystical Tutor and then putting a card on top of my deck. But I decided I really would rather just draw land, and it doesn't really make sense for me to go down another blue card when I want to use the Force and I want to eat cards with the Forbid, and I end up saying, I'm just going to bend the Eternal Witness and pass. Um, so Life's Finale. Life's Finale is interesting here because it kills pretty much just my Triton hero, so I get the feeling this guy is not too happy with me, even though I haven't done anything yet. So target acquired. I've just played so many games on MTGO, I can already feel it, and it does indeed turn into that. But the interesting thing here is I don't want to lose the Triton hero, and it's a 6 mana spell. So Drain eats it for 6 mana. I really don't give anyone else credit for wasting their counter spell to go over the top of Drain, or even to counter the Drain just to get the Triton hero off the board. So if I get to eat this Life's Finale, I get to slam Archmage, and then have the option of time spiraling, or having the option of passing on counters again, potentially using Triton Hero with open mana. And I feel like 6 mana is just too juicy to pass up with this drain, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger here and feed the green into the Flooded Grove, so I keep open all blue mana and hit his Life's Finale with this mana drain. Now here's a really interesting thing. Grand Abolisher. I'm not sure just how scary this guy's deck is yet. Rafiq in general is a fairly scary card, and he is in pretty good colors. I don't want this card to resolve, and I think about if it's really worth countering or not, and then I decide I have the line of Glenalandra Archmage into Time Spiral, which would mean losing cards from my hand isn't so bad. And if this incentivizes this guy to play Rashmi on his turn, then I could potentially tempo this player as well, and then get off my Time Spiral scot-free, and he thinks he's, free and clear to drop his Rashmi, and he might just eat a Force of Will, and then I'll just get to refill my hand, and it'll just be glorious. So I said I'm going to Forbid, but just in case things don't pan out the way I want them to, I'm actually going to discard both the Future Sight and the Merchant Scroll. Because if I need to force, I can still pitch the Forbid, but if I don't need to force, I still have access to an extra counter spell. Considering I still wanted to use a force, there's definitely reason to not buy those back. So that was maybe questionable, but in my mind, I felt like keeping the Forbid kept my options just a little bit further open. I don't know what's coming off the top of my deck. It appears it was the wrong choice to buy it back, because I could have been +1 card, because he immediately goes to play Teferi, Mage of Zhalfir, which is kind of interesting, considering if I get this Archmage down, I would be in a position where it's actually not so horrible with Teferi out, since you can use Archmage underneath Teferi. However, this is on this guy's end step, so if he has another counter spell, I'm just totally boned. So this obviously must be Force of Will. I still have my Archmage into Time Spiral line, so there's that. And he doesn't play the Rashmi, which is kind of strange to me, which signals to me maybe he still has another counter, but that's okay, because we're going to drop Archmage first like we planned, except now we topped the Recurring Insight. So I consider the value of Time Spiral being pretty good, considering I do have Mana Drain and Force of Will and cards that are fairly relevant right now in my yard. But in the same vein, the Insight has the potential to draw me tons of cards. And then I'll still have the Time Spiral in my back pocket for later. And since this guy is actually at 7 cards still, I'm going to go ahead and attempt to Insight him. So he goes and plays Reality Shift. Oh, well, you saw what I chose to do there. My thought process here on countering the Reality Shift is this. It's that, one, I could potentially hit a blue land off this Insight, and then having the Archmage still alive with the blue open keeps me a little bit protected on this next round, having a negate available. Two, if he has the counter spell and I don't pop it, it doesn't really matter. And I pop it. Yes, when the Persist is on the stack, he can still counter the Recurring Insight. But if I don't, I'm just losing the Archmage. So I feel like there's no reason not to pop it. I don't really want a random 2/2 and to have my Archmage exiled. Unfortunately for me, I do not hit a blue source, so Archmage is not online for this turn. I've got an Expedition map, so I can go ahead and get Cradle, which isn't so bad, but it still is a net cost of a loss of mana on my next turn. I've got Nature's Claim, which is always excellent. My new card in Mystic Confluence, but I'm actually rather mana choked this game, and I don't have the Seedborn Muse, so it's not really exactly what I'm looking for. Nature's Lore is actually pretty good, considering I didn't hit a land and I'm dying for mana. And Sylvan Library is always an excellent card, but it's a little later into the game, and it's very tense into how I'm going to use my mana. So these hits aren't horrible, but they're not excellent either. And I've also got the Worldly Tutor, which gives me a little bit of versatility, utility in my lines, and a little bit more choices in my lines of play. So it's not horrible overall, but for this next turn, I am really at the mercy of my opponents here. So I'm hoping nothing horrible happens. And he plays a Dreadbridge Chant, which could be very, very bad, but he doesn't hit like a single creature off of it. So really, it's just a 6 mana glorified Phyrexian Arena. So I'm not really too concerned with it as of right now. However, he plays Animate Dead on Teferi, which is annoying. I only have one Archmage counter, and Teferi is just so horrible for this deck. I'm quite happy I have this Nature's Claim to be able to deal with the Teferi for 1 mana. Obviously, I have to use it on my turn if I want to get rid of it. I don't have the option to use it instantly. And he does not play Rashmi again. He just passes, which there's a Teferi on the board. So it really confuses me that this player has not cast his commander with this Teferi out. And it actually complicates things quite a bit. But I am going to go ahead and claim it. So now he looks like he's very, very smart passing with his Teferi on the field. He just had faith in me killing it. I drew Counterspell off the top, which I want to be able to keep up just in case I need to counter something that Archmage can't deal with. So I feel like the best play here is to develop with Nature's Lore, get my land out, which will make the Time Spiral a little stronger. I really just need mana very, very badly. And I'm going to go ahead and throw out the map, which leaves me the option of Worldly Tutor plus Archmage or Counterspell. And we'll go ahead and let the Sylvan Library sit, which normally doesn't seem like the best option, but we really needed the Nature's Lore mana. Well, I think I just cut out. My headset's starting to do the thing I don't like it doing. But I also have the option of cracking this map and going to get Cradle, which I would be hoping this card finds mana anyway. So that was my decision process on this turn. Ancient Craving, not so scary. He's very, very, very much greased the engines of his deck. But I'm looking for the payoff. Maybe a little too much grease. That is not a problem I see in most players' decks, especially not budget players. So I guess props to that guy. Maybe he's just not hitting the business. But usually it's not less business. By the way, this card did target me, so any aggressive stuff he starts trying to do is coming my way as he hits this guy. And I think at this point, Nicodemus private messages me and says something like, if I bounce Dreadbridge Chant, will you counter it? And I'm like, Dreadbridge Chant's not even scary. Like, I'm not worried about Dreadbridge Chant at all. And I think it was a little bit of manipulation on his part, which we actually do quite a bit of in this game, which made it kind of happy for me. We actually had quite a bit of chat this game, which you don't really get too much of on MTGO. And I feel it makes the games a little more lively and a little more fun. So my next player here plays a Pride Mage. Still does not want to play Rafiq the Mini. Some kind of interesting plays here going on. And I think for sure these guys have counterspells. Now you see the manipulation. This guy casts a Reclaim on the Teferi. So I'm sure he would much rather have me not use my mana. Or use my mana to deal with Dreadbridge Chant so that he could bounce it and then use his leftover blue to get his Teferi back and then lock my counters. So I think that was a little bit of manipulation on his part. And now he's got the Teferi, and awkwardly, I can no longer crack the map for value since I didn't have to use the counters. Because if I do, I give him this window to cast a Teferi. Which that, by the way, was a card I was wondering about earlier. I don't know if it was this video or this other time I didn't make this video when I said that. But I wondered if he had that the first time he went to 5 when I activated this Triton Hero the first time. I want to say he didn't because, I mean, he might have. He's done some weird things this game. I have no idea. But I can't crack the map now. So there goes -2 mana for this turn. So I'm going to have to crack the map now, leaving open my ability to not let Teferi happen. Go ahead and play Gaia's Cradle, and yeah, we're going to ship the turn right back. I don't want to play Sylvan Library. I don't want to play Sylvan Library for a couple reasons. I need to be able to keep 2 blue up for Teferi. I need to be able to keep Archmage up. Now that would still leave me to play the library or the top, but this lets me also have the ability to use Triton Hero's ability, or potentially use Worldly Tutor, which keeps my options a little bit more open, or even potentially use the Mystic Confluence. And I feel like a lot of people would have probably slammed this library, but the other thing is there's a Kosali Pride Mage over here, and I don't want him to just feel like, oh, kill a library. So that's part of the reason I didn't drop it. I didn't really want to drop the top either, just because I wanted to keep the option of Worldly Tutor open, especially if I had to pop the Archmage earlier in the line. So it may seem a little strange that I didn't drop those cards there, but that was in fact intentional. So Satyr Wayfire comes down, and now this guy gets a disgusting reanimation target here in Ashen Rider. So I'm not happy about that at all. And not only does he have the reanimation target, Unburial Rites. So this is another interesting play I make this game. This was a really interesting game. This guy, I think, is coming after me regardless. But what I don't want him to do is I don't want him to exile Gaia's Cradle. Gaia's Cradle is probably my most important combo card on the field right now. And I feel like if I pop Archmage, it incentivizes him to maybe kill something other than the Cradle. Perhaps even my Triton hero, because it turns the Cradle off and he kind of feels like he's 2-for-1ing me, if you see what I'm saying. And I would be much more happy for him to get rid of that than actually kill the Cradle. So this is almost like a trap here. This is a bait. I know he's going to recast it, so I've used most of his mana up, which is also nice. Gets rid of his ability to flash something else back later, steal another creature. And down comes Ashen Rider, and sure enough, he goes for the Triton hero, which I'm obviously going to let happen. But first, I'm going to use the Worldly Tutor before I lose the Cradle mana, and I'm going to go put a Phantasmal Image on top, so that I can copy this Ashen Rider, get the Cradle right back online, and then deal with the ability for him to not swing at me, because I feel like he's got a hard-on for me already, which will help me get more cards with the library, as well as completely deal with that threat. So, and the image has pretty much a net cost of 1 because of the Cradle, so I feel like that's pretty good. This guy Celestial Manals his Pride Mage, and I'm hoping he swings at this guy and not me, because it feels like I've been kind of getting beaten on a little bit. Though if I was in his shoes, I would probably be swinging at me. So I'm quite happy when I see that he is swinging at Nicodemus, because I know Nicodemus has a bounce spell in his hand, because he offered me that if I bounced the Dreadbridge chant crap earlier. So he doesn't want to take the damage, doesn't want to deal with him doubling his life total, and he had the Cryptic command, which actually makes sense with how the way he's been playing a little bit now. And he chooses to bounce draw. And this guy, instead of choosing to get the Pride Mage back, probably because he tapped all his white, chooses to kill the Dreadbridge chant. So that was an excellent trade for me, because we got a powerful counterspell out of his hand. Dreadbridge Chant is dealt with, and no more Pride Mage to deal with. So now the path is clear for my Sylvan Library. So that is pretty much exactly the perfect way that could have went down. And this guy still refuses to cast his Teferi whenever I've got the mana open to counter it. So I'm going to go ahead with my plan of make an Ashen Rider, exile an Ashen Rider, which this is a dies trigger. This also gives me the option to potentially target the image with the Mystical Confluence to exile the Teferi if it ever does land, which I could get through a counterspell to do just main phasing this, which is kind of interesting. The way is clear finally to play Library, and since I only have the counterspell up now, the way is clear to finally play this top. So we're still not in an excellent position here, but we're kind of weathering the storm. And this guy continues his plan of screw you Moxnix, playing a slightly worse than Mind Twist, and trying to kill my whole hand. So I can't stop the Teferi anymore, but I do have this answer to it if I counterspell his Mind Shatter. Obviously not going to just lose my hand and not use a counterspell, no Mind Shatter, and I'm not going to be able to stop Teferi from landing. So there is that. Ancient Grudge on the top. Man, this guy really has a hard-on for me. I'm going to go ahead and flip the top. There's the Edric. He does something this game, but something other than being Edric. And then Grave Upheaval on my Eternal Witness, returning his Dreadbridge chant, which is kind of interesting. So he swings at Nicodemus. Nicodemus flashes into Teferi, bounces it off his Unyielding, and we both take 3 damage. Okay. Are we finally going to see Rafiq? No, he plays Gamekeeper, which if you've never seen Gamekeeper before, when it dies, you may exile it. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library to a rare creature card, put that card onto the battlefield, and put all other cards revealed this way into your graveyard. So kind of interesting graveyard card slash Taliban performance your own deck type guy when it dies. Interesting card. I don't think I'd seen it before this game. And a little bit of manip here. I'm like, man, you got to deal with this Teferi. It's no good for us. And he says something to the effect of, I know, man, I've got it in my deck too. I know how brutal that card could be. Don't worry, I've got it. and he deals with this Teferi for me, so I no longer have to use this Mystic Confluence, which is absolutely excellent. And he deals with the Teferi, which has now hit the board for the third time and done nothing for the third time. Tap land from Nicodemus into Burnish Art doesn't scare me too much. Get to use the library. Go ahead and pitch the top. I'm a little bit worried about my life total, and with the Chrome Mox, I feel like the Training Grounds is definitely worth it. It helps my Polygon combo. It also makes Triton Hero quite a bit more efficient, and yet again, a little bit more manipulation. I test the waters here before I go to cast this Time Spiral, because as you can see, I cannot stop Counter Spell on Time Spiral from happening with Mystic Confluence. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's no way I can stop it. So I decided to go ahead and play the Training Grounds because I think it's good value. And I pretty much ask if anyone's okay with the draw 7. And I was like, do you want a new hand? They're like, oh, I don't really care. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to get rid of this guy's graveyard. I want to hose this guy's graveyard with this Time Spiral. And they're like, oh, okay, it seems like a good idea. I'd also like to go +5 cards. So considering it doesn't do anything in my hand if I don't cast it, more like +6 cards, right? So I'm quite happy to do that. And at this point in the game, I only have 7 minutes left. These are 25-minute timers. So I'm thinking I need to combo kill soon or I'm going to lose. The Pollencron loop does take at least 3 or 4 minutes to pull off in this deck. So my timer is getting low, and I'm thinking I need to win on my next turn. But I also don't want to spend too much time thinking. And I'm thinking what I can do is I can use the Sower to go +2, Archmage +1. If I don't lose this Ashen Rider, the Cradle can tap for enough mana that since this Training Grounds just makes this loop cost 9, if this Cradle can tap for enough mana, I can loop with just the Gaia's Cradle. So that is my plan as of right now. And then the idea would be if I can build up to Green Sun Zenith, I can get Vorinclex, which makes the loop even more efficient. And then I can use the Merchant Scroll to go get Mystical Tutor, go get Fabricate, to assure that I find the Aetherflux Reservoir before I time out. So at this point, I'm kind of playing against the timer. This is a little bit of time control. I don't know if you guys are chess players, but if you ever played Blitz chess, moving fast is a thing. So I decided I'm going to cast the Archmage, and I'm going to go ahead and cast Triton Hero, and then only leave open 1 blue from Archmage. And I'm going to do this just because it makes my next turn more efficient and make it so I can actually try to combo kill them on next turn easier. Instead of getting the Merchant Scroll to go get like another counter spell and not cast Triton Hero, and then trying to loop on my next turn, and then potentially having less mana because the Triton Hero is not out and I have to recast it, saving myself from time, but obviously being just a little bit safer, or even just having extra mana open for another Archmage activation. Part of my decision making there was the clock. He goes ahead and cycles the Decree of Pain. Can't stop that. But Archmage comes back, and I only have 1 counter anyway. Though if I have to use it, I do now go down a Cradle mana. He plays a Blind Obedience, which really isn't that scary. And then he swings. I think he should probably should have swung first, but it's just been one of those games. Chasm Skulker. I'm really worried about what these next 2 players are going to do. Frost Titan. Frost Titan comes down, and I'm thinking, don't tap my Cradle. Please don't tap my Cradle. He taps the Command Tower, which, in one vein, if this guy is like a Cyclonic Rift or something, I might have to weather another turn. I don't know if I have enough time to win if that happens. Luckily, just to harmonize behind it, nothing too scary. He goes ahead and swings. Brainstorm over there. He's continuing to hit Nicodemus instead of me, so that makes me happy. And Nicodemus, I'm thinking, don't Cyclonic Rift, don't play anything good. Still hasn't played Rashmi. Plays Pollencron. At this point, I think I've lost the game. He's at 7 lands, so I'm thinking Phantasmal Image loop into something. But he just plays a Krufix, God of Horizons. and we get to untap. So from this position, I've already told you how I'm going to win. I'm going to Sower to +2, and Arbor Elf makes this even better. Arbor Elf makes this well, I just get +1 on the Cradle, since it still costs me 1. But the plan is I'm going to be able to cast a Palancron with the blue still open for Archmage now, since I didn't have to use it, and I'm going to just be able to start my chain and then just build my chain into a better chain so that I don't lose the time. So we're going to immediately Palancron out after we get a full board of creatures. Cradle's now tapping for tons of mana. 7. Palancron out a second time. Palancron one more time. I don't know if that time was necessary, but considering I was more worried about the clock, I decided doing an extra loop to not throw was probably good. I don't know if it was necessary or not, but we're going to go for Screensun Zenith and Eclex now with the land still untapped. Tap them while they're double. Now we're making tons of mana because it's only 9 to loop, and we're making like 20 or something. So now we're going to instantly go for our Mystical Tutor Chain. Use Triton Hero to immediately get Fabricate. Fabricate to the Aetherflux. Get Aetherflux out. And now it's just a race against the clock. And it is a race that I win. And I end up winning this game with the Aetherflux Reservoir with less than 50 seconds on my clock. I think I had 47 seconds on the clock when I killed them. So that was a really fun game. Went 11 turns, quite a few turns more than my decks normally go to playing combo. Definitely had some back and forth. I had some interesting decisions that I had to make throughout the game to navigate through this game. It was kind of interesting. I had to go against the time control at the end. And it was really weird that they didn't... Rafiq the Mini and Rashmi, that's the biggest thing. Rashmi was never cast this entire game, which is kind of interesting to me. Maybe something to be said about Triton Hero being a true hero here. But yeah, I thought this game was cool. Look forward to my new decks here in the near future. I know you budget players are super excited now that I've kind of spoiled that I've got a budget Storm deck in the works. And I will say it is easier to play than my normal Storm deck. It is, I'm not going to say it's super budget friendly, but I think I set a limit of $50 to cards, except for Mana Crypt, because I assume that almost anyone who plays Commander any bit serious now can afford a Mana Crypt. How much is a Mana Crypt? I think they're like $60. Let's check this website. Mana Crypt. I think this is the only card. Okay, $65. It's the only card that I have in the deck that I'm currently testing that is more than $50. So no mana drain in that deck, obviously. Not going to be playing quite a few of the expensive cards. I'm not going to have you playing Imperial Seal or Grim Tutor or Candelabra or Time Twister, any of the 1,000 cards. Everyone asks me, I don't have this card, what should I play? Obviously, it's not going to be a build that fits everybody, but it's going to be a build that fits more players because it's going to be very easy to see that the deck can still, in fact, work without those expensive cards. And if you happen to have, a Time Twister, you happen to have a Mana Drain, or any of those cards, you're obviously going to be playing those cards. But I'll give you you guys a little bit better idea of what the replacement cards you can play in the Storm Shell is, and how the deck can function slightly differently when you don't have access to those cards. I also have another deck in the works as well that I think you guys will enjoy. For now, that is me signing out. Merry Christmas to you all. I don't expect to upload a video before Christmas, so this will be my last one until then. Hope you guys have a happy holidays if you're not a Christmas type. Moxnix